At the beginning of November 2016, when some of us were grieving the political situation then, thinking things could never get worse, my wife and I were celebrating a personal triumph. We just learned that we could expect a baby in the summer of 2017. We had 2 previous miscarriages, so we were cautious in our celebration. However, this time seemed different. The medical people were less guarded, and in December, we heard a little heartbeat through the ultrasound and wept with happiness after 8 frustratingly painful years. In our initial wave of joy, we set about considering names for the child. And this led to a little conflict. We each wrote our personal list of potential names for our child, boy and girl names, and perused each other's lists. Now, usually I'm a very flexible person. I'm willing to compromise, sometimes to a fault. This time, though, I was unwavering in my decision. If we had a girl, then she had to be named Eleanor. My wife did not want to name a girl Eleanor. She did not like the name. This was not going to be easy for us. I was adamant about this, and she was adamant against it. Fortunately for us, at the first ultrasound in January or February, the technician told us that our child appeared to be healthy and also appeared to be a boy. At the second ultrasound, she told us the baby was probably healthy, and he's still a boy. The Eleanor crisis was averted, and our son was born 4 months later. Why was I so adamant about the name Eleanor? Well, genealogical research showed that I was descended from the English Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine, a strong woman. If you've seen The Lion in Winter, you know how strong she was. There's nothing special about that, though. Genealogists like to point out that 2/3 of the population of Western Europe are descended from Eleanor of Aquitaine. Most of you probably are descended from Eleanor of Aquitaine, if you were able to go far enough back. Those Plantagenets got around. There was also Eleanor Holmes Norton, the congressional delegate to the United States House of Representatives, an African American who was the first woman to chair the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I wanted my daughter to have a feminine power name rather than a cute name. I wanted a daughter to read about other women named Eleanor who worked for the good, who were strong and were leaders. And of course, the real Eleanor she would be named for would be Eleanor Roosevelt. I admired Eleanor Roosevelt for constantly encouraging her husband, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to take the New Deal farther, to expand civil rights and protections for the most vulnerable. Most of all, though, I admired Eleanor Roosevelt for her work as a delegate to the United Nations in designing the text and garnering international support for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1948, the Assembly of the United Nations gave her a standing ovation when the Human Rights Declaration was adopted. It was a great time for the world, and it was a great moment for women because a woman had changed something. A woman who was chosen by the people had changed things. Human Rights Day, the United Nations commemoration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was 11 days ago. Though this season is more influenced by the Christmas holiday, it seems important to consider human rights as they are being violated internationally and nationally, as they always have been. For Unitarian Universalists especially, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a document that influenced the writing of our principles of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Some of the wording of our own centering document echoes the language of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Indeed, until the advent of the 21st century, many Unitarian Universalist congregations celebrated and collected money for the support of the United Nations. The Gray Hymnal, first published in 1993, has 2 hymns listed topically for United Nations Sunday. At the first congregation I served, there were 2 flags on either side of the pulpit. The flag of the United States on one side and the flag of the United Nations on the other. Our movement really took seriously then the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the work of moving the whole earth forward. This is an amazing document. It was amazing that it got passed. I can only suppose that it was because of Eleanor Roosevelt's strong personality and everybody wanting to please Eleanor Roosevelt on some degree, but also she was persistent about it. So what does the Universal Declaration of Human Rights say? The first sentence might seem familiar to Unitarian Universalists. It notes, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Can you hear the first Unitarian Universalist principle, which affirms and promotes the inherent worth and dignity of every person in that? Can you hear the second and sixth Unitarian Universalist principles, which affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all? I cannot help but read this and think that the people who wrote our principles were also looking at this declaration. Later, the declaration states, the member states reaffirm their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity of worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women, and have determined to promote social progress and better standards of life with larger freedom. Clearly, our religious movement was influenced by the language of this declaration. And by the way, no place on earth had equal rights for men and women when this was promulgated. They just didn't exist anywhere. This goes deeper than just the language. Articles 1 and 2 hold of the belief in human equality, with affirmations that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and that everyone is entitled to all rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. This is revolutionary. Race, color, sex, language, religion, birth, or other status. The amazing thing about this is that nowhere on this planet were these principles all in practice. In the United States, Jim Crow laws still curtailed freedom for African Americans, and throughout the world, women had no equality in rights and freedoms. People throughout the world could be jailed or punished for their religious affiliations or political opinions. Birth, status, property, social origin were all reasons for discrimination. The Declaration says, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person And no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. This seems so dated to us, but I have to tell you, de facto, slavery is practiced throughout the world, even now. It just isn't acknowledged, but is a reality still for some people. The Declaration also affirms that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Also stated is that everyone must be recognized as a person and equal before the law, with due process guaranteed. Everyone should be presumed innocent until proven guilty, according to law, in public trial in which he has all the guarantees necessary for his defense. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each nation, and has the right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his own country. Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. Considering our current situation, that line is very important. It goes on, men and women, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Everyone is guaranteed freedom of religion, of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or beliefs, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right of equal access to public service in his country. The will of the people should be the basis of the authority of government. This will be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. All of this is still practical. The Declaration assures that everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his interests. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood, in circumstances beyond his control. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. That everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood, in circumstances beyond his control. These are the parts, and they include this last one. Everyone has a right to an education. These are the parts of this declaration, and there are others. But I've shared these basic rights as the ones that are of the greatest importance to our nation and the world, and possibly to our faith. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a document that sets forth the world in which we humans wish to live. It was ratified in 1948 during a time when the divisions of the Cold War between the capitalist and democratic and the communist and dictatorial systems were becoming in conflict over the ruins of Europe, and people all over the world longing to be free from colonial exploitation and influence. The acceptance of this document by the nations of the world was a colossal achievement, just amazing. Human rights are still more a dream than a reality in our nation and throughout most of the world in too many ways to share this morning. It's amazing, as I read that, to think that an American authored this document, and there are so many ways this document does not apply to the United States. I suppose in our times that we would add protections for persons who are LGBTQ+, and people who are immigrants. Both groups need to be affirmed and protected from harm. Our United States fails some of these standards more than any country in the realm of wealthy nations. It is difficult to name a nation that succeeds in all of these points, and it is easy to name nations that fail in many of them. The important thing is that this declaration sets forth a philosophy that encourages the well-being and safety of everyone. In this, we're naming the world that we want to live in, and we would wish others to live in too. Presenting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights only days before Christmas Eve might seem out of time. After all, what does it have to do with the birth of Jesus? In my opinion, and I know this is just mine, quite a lot. Jesus was born to common folk at a time when his native land was occupied by a mighty empire. Torture and other violations of human rights were common affairs in ancient Palestine. Human rights were of no concern to Rome. Only obedience and dominance held any importance. Murder was a spectator sport, and only the powerful were considered holy. Jesus' ministry was in reaction spiritually and ethically to that, and also to the corruption of the Hebrew faith in his time. He views humans kindly and demonstrates an equality when dealing with others. He speaks to people who are not considered worthy to be spoken to. He does this over and over. He speaks to the outcast. He seemed to see the Holy Spirit even in people whom everyone else saw as lesser. He modeled the values of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, despite what you may have heard in other religious places. As we remember the old story of his birth this week, may we also see some of his kingdom in the words of this document we have explored today. Let us end with this thought presented by Unitarian minister Edmund Hamilton Sears in his poem later set to a Christmas carol, It Came Upon the Midnight Clear. It seems to offer hope in these dark times that the spirit of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights will eventually prevail. And it was his hope for something like this even in the middle of the 19th century. He writes, "For lo, these days are hastening on, by prophet bards foretold, when with the encircling years comes round the age of gold, when peace shall over all the earth in its ancient splendors fling, and the whole world give back the song which now the angels sing. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.